Okay, here's our little Marvel Schebler carburetor, updraft style, that we're fixing to take apart off of the 1954 Lincoln short hood welder. But these carburetors were used on all kinds of tractors and equipment and engines and all that sort of stuff through the years. There's zillions of these things out here. So we're going to get started taking it apart and soak it overnight in a can of carburetor cleaner, and then put it all back together with brand new stuff in it tomorrow. First thing to do is take all the jet screws out of it. And what you want to do when you take these screws out are screw them in very easily and count how many turns. Now that's a half, one, half, and we're going to call that 1.5 from closed. So when you go to put these back together, you can run the screws all the way in and then back them off however many turns it was you counted, and they'll be right, or close to right. And then you'll have to adjust them. It'll get it running anyway, and then you'll have to adjust them a little bit to get them exactly dialed in. Same thing here. And it's half, one, half, two, and yeah, that's almost 2.5. So we'll open that up to probably 2.25 when we put it back together. Alright, now it's good to have a piece of plastic or something laying down here, because this carburetor's got gas in it and it'll get all over your workbench if you don't. Alright, now there's 4 screws that hold the top of this thing together. Alright, most of the time these things will separate. Yep, see, there you go. Alright, now see, the bowl here is full of gas, so we're going to go get rid of this real quick, and I'll be right back. Okay. Now, you've got a jet right here that needs to be taken out and cleaned. Usually a 3/8 socket will handle that, but I think I've got a 10mm on here right now, which, if they're not stuck too bad, which I knew this one wouldn't be, we'll get it out without damage to it. But you really should use the correct tool for the job. Alright, see, we've got several little holes in here that have all got to be cleaned out, and then it goes straight through, which that is clean. But now, this is probably, yep, still down in here. See, there's a little gasket. Now this will come new with the kit, but you don't want to leave that down in there. So we're going to use this needle here just to grab that. Alright, now, if you're going to do a sure enough, honest to goodness rebuild, these Welch plugs need to be knocked out. All these plugs need to come out. You'll take this is the choke down here, you'll take those screws out right there, and take the butterfly out, and pull this shaft out, and put all new seals and everything there. But this is a running engine. It runs good, in fact. So I'm not going to go through all of that, because basically just I'm doing the video to refresh the gaskets and everything, because the bowl was leaking a little bit, and just show y'all how to do it, more than because this one actually needed rebuilt. Alright, on the top, here, you've got the float, and underneath the float, right down here, is the needle. So you want to slide that little pin out. Sometimes those can be a booger. And then the float comes off, and there's the needle underneath it. Now this one already has a neoprene needle on it, so it's got a modern needle in it. But when you're dealing with these old float style carburetors like this, if your carburetor, if the needle is still the original all metal needle, keep it. Do not throw that thing away, because they're hard to come by, and those little neoprene ones don't work great sometimes. Alright, now you got the little bell in here that, let me work this gasket off of it. There we go. Sits right down in here, and that directs your airflow. And then you have the seat right down in here for the needle, and this other little jet right here. Both of these can be a real bear to get out without destroying them. It takes a big screwdriver for this one and a little bitty one for this one, and you're subject to absolutely destroying either one of those if you're not careful. They are brass, and they're really soft and easy to mar. I had to go get my golly gee whopper screwdriver here. Yep, see, that one's not wanting to do. There we go. Alright, see, that's the hole where the fuel comes in at, from right here where the line goes to the machine. And you want that to be clean, and most of the time a carburetor kit will come with a new needle and seat. Now, this one right here is going to be the real trick. But I honestly find that most of the time when I'm rebuilding these, I don't have to get that out. I try to, but if it looks like it's going to strip, or the threads are going to tear up on it or something, I don't mess with it. Okay, we tried to get that out and it's not wanting to come, so we're going to just open our can of carburetor cleaner and put everything in it. Now, all these cans of cleaner, it's Kim Dip. Buy it by the gallon at your local parts store. And it comes with a basket right here to set everything in. And I usually like to just put everything in it. Of course, the float's going to set up, but and even sometimes if you're not sure what all your kit's going to come with, if it's going to have new needles and all that sort of stuff, you can throw them in there. Although don't put the little needle with the neoprene tip in there, because you'll destroy it. This can of carburetor cleaner is old, and so it's starting to get a little empty. Alright, so we've got the carburetor soaking in the carburetor cleaner, and we're going to let that set overnight, and in the morning we'll come back, wash everything off, and blow all the ports and jets out with some compressed air, and then we'll put it all back together. Okay, we've got all of our stuff laid out here, and I've opened up the carburetor kit that I got for it. And this is actually a really good complete kit. The only thing that it did not have new in it is our big high-speed adjustment needle. And everything else is in here. This is one of the more complete kits that I've seen for one of these little Marvel carburetors. And it's an Amazon kit. This is one of the cheap, probably Chinese kits off of Amazon. I think it was like $8. Now, normally I will 100% pay more for an American-made kit. I will buy it and pay more for it if the quality is better. But if I can't tell the difference between the more expensive one And the cheaper one, I'm not going to spend the extra money. And this is a pretty quality kit as far as I can tell. I cannot tell any difference between these and any of the other kits that I've ever bought. And honestly, the Tisco kits and those different companies that sell online antique tractor parts and all that kind of stuff are probably selling you the exact same kit as what I just bought right here. So anyway, we're going to start putting this thing back together. First thing is, this piece here has got several little small holes in it. There. That one that I just pointed to over there. Take a fine piece of wire and clean those out good. And if you run across one of these carburetors that has been running and has set for a little while and you can't get the motor to start, I can almost guarantee that those little holes are stopped up. Or if it's not, if it'll just crank and run for a second and die, those little holes are stopped up. And you can take it apart, clean those holes out, put it back together without doing anything else, and it'll run 9 times out of 10. So this actually has a little gasket that goes on it. Whoop, not that one, hang on. If I can get it, there we go. Now, that goes on there just like that. And then this screws back down into that hole. And I usually try to hold these upside down to do it so our gasket doesn't fall off and get messed up or not get seated right when we put it in. Here we go. All right. There's that. And that's all we got to do to the bottom half. Now, the top half, we have a new needle and seat. And actually, I'm going to keep the old parts the old hard parts that I took out of this, because this was actually running. I'm just doing this, like I said, to put new gaskets and everything in it. So here's our new needle, our new seat. Here's our new clip for the needle. And this kit even came with a new pivot rod for the float. So all that's really great. Some of these kits don't come with all of that stuff. Okay. Now this is also going to have a gasket that goes around it, and that'll be that big one that I had a while ago. Get that started and run in. And we'll use our big golly gee whiz screwdriver here. That's a technical term for this. If anybody is looking for one of these, it is a golly gee whiz screwdriver. Or at least that's what I call it. Your results may vary. You might get a funny look if you go to the hardware store and ask for a golly gee whiz screwdriver. Or somebody might know exactly what you're talking about. Alright, now, we had, you can see the bell here has one edge that's flat and one edge that's kind of tapered. The flat edge is what goes down on the bottom half on the bowl. And it just real easy, if you can, pops onto the gasket like that. And most of the time, I put these on just like that. Go ahead and install it on the top half of the carburetor, because your float and needle and everything goes on top of it. Alright, and here's our clip for the needle. And that just hangs like that. The needle is hung from that. It doesn't actually clip onto it or anything like that. We set that down in the hole. And then slide the pin in. Alright. You want, with the needle closed, you want your float setting approximately level. And it's hard to film this with the camera on the stand like it is, but you want, when you hold your carburetor like this and you're sighting down this plane here, you want the float to be setting about level with it closed, but you know, holding it up in the air like this, so that gravity's holding it down. Alright, we've got that half handled. We've got our new needle and seat in, we've got the new gasket on, and we're ready to put the bowl back on. There we go. And we've got our 4 bowl screws here. Now I like to get all of these started and ran in just snugged up, not tightened. And then go back and tighten them in a crisscross pattern. Now, I don't know that that really actually is required or does anything, but that's just how I was taught to do it. Supposedly that keeps it from warping anything. But these things are pretty heavy chunks of cast iron, so I don't really expect some little flathead screws to warp it. Alright. Alright. Now we have our big needle, and I did put a new gasket on it right here. Alrighty, and we're going to run it all the way down to closed. Now, we're going to back that off half, 1, half, 2, and about 1/4, we'll say. Because I think that's what we had figured out that it was whenever we took it off. Alrighty. Alright, that's got all the parts in, and that kit even came with a brand new manifold gasket. So there we are. That carburetor is ready to be reinstalled.